You deserve to know.
I matter! We matter!
To hear all sides of a story. To receive reliable information. Bringing the news is becoming more dangerous every day. Journalists are harassed, intimidated, attacked, and even murdered. Free Press Unlimited stands up for journalists all over the world because you deserve to know.
Yes, welcome everybody to Free Press Live, the webinar edition. I'm going to take off the mask, but I think you got the message. Welcome. Everywhere in the world, even in the Netherlands nowadays, journalists are being threatened and under attack. Facts are being debated, and at the same time, we're facing a global pandemic. And of course, there's the elections in the US. Who will be the next president? Today, we're going to talk about the safety of journalists who bring us reliable information and therefore who protect actually the democracy and its people living in it. During this hour, we will digitally meet with Maria Ressa. She's a journalist who is based in the Philippines, American Filipino journalist, and one of the world's most influential people. We're very honored that she will be here with us. And also we will hear from Věra Jourová. She's an EU commissioner who is fighting for a democratic Europe and the safety of journalists. And we will also honor 2 winners of the Free Press Award. My guests here in the studio are Okke Ornstein. He's an investigative journalist from the Netherlands who knows what it's like to be under threat during the job, to be under attack.
Glad to be here.
Welcome, welcome. And of course, Leon Willems. He's the Director of Program and Policies to Free Press Unlimited. Welcome also.
Hello.
Yes, and everybody who's watching at home, I think there's a screen and there's a chat box in your screen, and you can ask questions there. So please do so during this hour. Leon, I'm going to start with you. What exactly are you looking forward to the most this hour?
Well, I think, we're doing this for the 5th consecutive year. And 5 years ago, we thought it is important to highlight the safety of journalists because it's an increasing problem around the world. And so I'm looking forward to discuss a very difficult year for journalism, but also a year where journalism has never been more important than before, I would say. So I'm looking forward to Maria Ressa, who is someone that I really admire because she's on the cutting edge of journalism, technology, and public service. And I'm also very interested because there's a lot of decision-making that is going to take place in the coming weeks and months on the democracy in Europe. So I'm very, I'm really looking forward to what Věra Jourová has to say. We're going to see on the 2nd of December, the Digital Service Act is going to be launched in Europe. That is going to influence the space for journalism. So I'm really, looking forward to what they have to contribute.
Yeah, well, let's start with our first guest. She's from Prague, I think. We were supposed to have a digital video connection, but I just got a latest message that we have a phone connection with Věra Jourová. She's the Vice President Values and Transparency for the EU Commission. Věra Jourová states that journalists should be able to work in the right conditions and they need to be safe and have access to information. We are very pleased to welcome her live from Prague. Hello, Ms. Jourová.
Hello. I am happy to be with you, at least through the mobile phone.
Yeah.
And sorry for the technical problem.
No.
It's probably on my side.
No worries. I think you've prepared a short speech for us. Well, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure for me to be with you today, and it's a real honor to participate in this event with several brave journalists, Bianca Albu, Maria Ressa, and Okke Ornstein. I don't know, Madam Maria Ressa, maybe you don't remember me. We met in New York at Time 100 ceremony last year, and I heard you speaking, and I have to say that I admired you that day, and still it remains now. So I'm glad that I can take part in this event where we are going to discuss exactly what you already said. We see increasing importance of the work of journalists and of increasing importance of creating the proper conditions for the work of the journalists, to begin with their security, to the access to information and freedom to do the job. And we see that this year is also the time when the media sector is under extreme financial distress and pressure due to the COVID crisis. And it's not new, because already before COVID came, there was economic pressure on independent media because the business models are changing, and the money of advertisers is shifting more and more to online sphere, to only several systems, several platforms. So these are all things we are looking at. When I say, I mean the European Commission, my colleagues and myself. And indeed, as you said before, we are now preparing for the 2nd of December the quite important decisions. One is on the regulation on digital systems, which is called Digital Services Act. It should be the update of the so-called e-commerce directive, but there are many more things, because we have to have a serious say on how to deal with the issue of illegal content online, and with low transparency and accountability of the digital platforms. What we see, that's a trend which is already lasting maybe more than one decade, that the power of the digital or big tech companies is increasing, and their responsibility is stagnating, if not decreasing. So this imbalance is becoming really dangerous, and we have to react on that by issuing or adopting the rules, which will increase transparency and increase also legality of the digital content. And we are also working on the European Democracy Action Plan, which should focus on the issue of disinformation, which should come with the proposals how to protect elections better and stronger in the EU, and also how to create better conditions for the journalists to do the job. We also focusing on media and pluralism, media pluralism in our recent report on the rule of law in all European member states, which we issued on the 30th of September. Because we do believe that we have to look at the situation in the member states in more broad sense, or to seek for broader picture. Because when we speak about the rule of law, of course, definitely it's not only about the independence of media, of judiciary system. It's about the checks and balances, but also it is about the freedom of speech and freedom of media and access to information. It's about active citizenship, and it's also about fight against corruption, which we also by this rule of law report. I will cut it short. I am not reading the paper which my fantastic colleagues prepared for me, because I just want to react on the question which was already present in the opening remark. In the European Democracy Action Plan, we want to look into better protection of journalists. We are planning an initiative against the strategic lawsuit. We are planning to do something against the abusive litigation. We are planning new projects to protect journalists better against harassment and threats. We are already financing several projects which are offering legal aid and also physical protection. We definitely have to do more to guarantee the journalists that they can not only do their job freely and professionally, but that they also have guaranteed basic security. And after the assassination of Daphne Caruana Galizia in Malta and Jan Kuciak in Slovakia, we definitely have to do more. And it's mainly in the hands of the member states, but also for Europe, this is a clear task to push on guaranteeing better conditions and security for the journalists.
Yes.
I see some statistical figures here, how many journalists have been harassed and have been victims of threats. In the last 12 months, the EU has supported over 425 journalists with emergency grants, temporary relocation, or support to their respective media outlets. And we, every time we discuss with the member states, we call on all of them to bring to justice those responsible for crimes against journalists. Because this impunity only fuels fear, mistrust, and creates barriers for free and independent media across the world. We have to continue to defend freedom of expression and protect those who make use of this fundamental freedom to keep us informed every day. And we saw clearly that the freedom of media and the proper conditions for their work are essential for protecting and maybe defending, better to say, defending democracy and protecting us against the authoritarian tendencies. Because when we see, when we look at the countries where these tendencies are on the rise, who are the uncomfortable ones? It's independent judge, it's independent journalist, it's active citizen who doesn't only wait for his moment to come to cast his or her vote, but who is active between the elections. The NGOs, those who are vocal on the rights of minorities. These are all uncomfortable people and groups of people and also institutions for those who want to grab more power, which will go beyond the democratic system. Mm-hmm. I myself am on the list of the uncomfortable ones, so yes. I'm happy to mention the others. Not mm-hmm. happy, but we have to mention all the powers which have to be in place and have to be protected because they have to play a very, very important role in defending democracy. Yeah. In COVID time, I could tell you many more things. How nervous we were, especially at the beginning when the emergency regimes were set up in our member states, where we saw difficult access to information for the journalists, mm-hmm. where we saw the application of the criminal law against some journalists in the member states. For the so-called producing the fake news, we saw several other worrying trends, and we really have to monitor what's happening and have to push the member states to deploy all the safeguards.
What I really like to know is, because you stated before that we need to digitalize democracy with the freedom of expression. You just mentioned it as well. Freedom of expression is at the core, and freedom of press, but at the same time, what we see worldwide is that there's so many opinions shared as facts nowadays. So they're not really facts, they're opinions. And fake news is spreading really fast, which I think is a great challenge. How do you propose to do this?
Well, I said that we have to digitalize democracy and that we have to democratize digital.
How?
How? We try now to work on the meaningful proposal of the Digital Services Act, where we are coming with the rules. Especially the rules against the online crime in the sense of illegal content. And also on disinformation, we try to find a way how to decrease the impact of disinformation without introducing any kind of censorship.
Which is very hard, I think. It's
yes,
sort of a...
First of all, we have to bring some clarity and some order into the nowadays chaotic situation. We want to guarantee that, or have guaranteed that what is illegal offline is illegal online. And we speak here about terrorism. Radicalization comes from online. This is the painful also topic of these days with the increased terror in Europe. We speak about child pornography and hate speech, and we need more accountability from the digital players and also more active law enforcement side. But coming to disinformation, what is fake is not illegal.
Exactly.
But
that's why.
Under some conditions, it might be dangerous. Here I have especially in mind security threat or security risk and elections, and also these days it's health. So we want to bring clarity in some definitions. We welcome with the definition of what is disinformation, what is misinformation, and what is foreign influence. We will differentiate this also from the point of view of the impact and possible public harm, because this is what I am interested in as legislator. Yeah, I am the one who has to look at the public harm. Otherwise, I should not touch the things. Yeah, if you agree with me.
Yes.
So we come with the definitions. We come with the definitions. What are facts and what are opinions? So that the facts belong to everybody and are objective, but opinions belong to each of us and have to be protected by the freedom of speech principle. We are going to bring clarity on, again, I'm in definition still, who are the producers, who are the distributors, and who make the money on it, for political gain or both, who are the believers, and how to address the problems which we see.
So clarity is a very important point you're making, and see who's behind the facts or the opinions and where the money comes from. Ms. Jourová, thank you so much for your time. I think you posed some interesting questions also. Thank you so much, Ms. Jourová, and I hope to speak to you again. You were also listening. Is there any point you would like to address Ms. Jourová made, or do you have any recommendations maybe?
Well, I think that we are part of a broader group of concerned non-governmental organizations that is trying to say this tsunami of fake news. Of course, we can look at what is it exactly. What is harmful, what is not harmful. But the fact that it is a tsunami is also because there is an earning model that polarizes opinion around the world. And we see the results. I mean, Maria is really the expert on that, so she will talk about it. Can we not do more to prevent the tsunami by asking very specific transparency on the algorithms that make us go crazy and make us go even more left when we are left or even more right when we are right, so that there is no middle ground anymore. Yeah,
and is transparency enough, or should we maybe even have regulations for these algorithms?
But currently the algorithms are really fostering hate and fostering untruth. Yeah. And we would like to see positive decisions from policymakers, not only against hate speech, but also positive decisions on how can we promote truth. Yeah. That would be so important.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's a very good addition to the speech of Věra Jourová. As a free press awards, journalists are being recognized who have a strong commitment with press freedom and independent information. And Okke, you have the honor to introduce the winner of this year's Free Press for Newcomer of the Year, the award. Would
Yes.
you like to introduce her and why she
It is
won
really an
this
honor
award?
because, listen, I have here the jury report and it says the following. Bianca Albu has shown great motivation to pursue a career in journalism. She not only started in a very challenging time, a few months before the worldwide outbreak of COVID-19, she was also confronted with political aggression after one of her first investigations. This did not stop her. During the pandemic, she provided readers with daily figures on deaths and the spread of COVID-19, in addition to her investigations. Over the past year, she has shown a high quality in her research and articles, revealing corruption scandals in Romania, and made an impressive start with her journalistic work. Recently, she has been investigating illegal public acquisitions made under the pretext of the coronavirus. And that is why Bianca has won the Free Press Award for Newcomer of the Year.
Yay,
She's
Bianca, congratulations. This is your award. This is the prize. You won a media scholarship. You're on a video connection with us from Romania. How do you feel about winning this prize?
Hello.
Hi.
First of all, I'm really excited and nervous at the same time, but I'm so honored to receive this prize. It is a great acknowledgement of my work because it has been indeed a challenging year.
Yeah.
And I'm also honored to be here with you and with Maria Ressa, whom I admire greatly.
I think all of us here.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank
Yes.
you. And Bianca, maybe you can briefly explain what exactly you uncovered. What did you uncover during this pandemic?
Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Thank you
for us. We are very proud of you.
Hello. This
Hello.
is my editor, who I have to thank very much. Oh,
This is a surprise. This is a surprise for us
yes,
too.
it is a surprise. Thank you.
Can you share with us why? What exactly you uncovered in your country?
Yes, so I was working on some investigations into public acquisitions, as you said, regarding the police. And I uncovered some overpriced masks that were bought from a company that had political ties with the mayor. And I wrote, I think, 4 or 5 articles on this. Then I went on with not only masks, with other coronavirus products. And they were bothered because of this, so they sued me for fake news. Mm-hmm. I won, but unfortunately, this is a common practice in Romania. Politicians in high functions are putting the label of fake news on our articles, and this is hurting our credibility. And another problem is the fact that they don't say that is fake news about the actual fake news. They only say this through investigations that are bothering them.
Yes. So what exactly was the accusation? Literally, what did they accuse you of?
Of fake news. They told me that the information I wrote.
They do say you're being accused of producing fake news.
Yes.
And what do you think is necessary to protect journalists like you? Well, you won this great scholarship now, but what can be done to protect journalists like you?
I think that it comes from the laws. I mean, the government should protect us instead of fighting with us. So this is a first step, but also education. The people should be educated to discover fake news, to know how to interpret them. And this is very problematic here because we have no education or very little education regarding this disinformation or misinformation problem.
I see. I'm also receiving questions from people who are watching from all over the world. Let me read out the first question. How did she get inspired to do journalism of this type? And she did not do much investigative journalism before Corona. So how did you get inspired to do this?
Well, It actually kind of just happened because
Doesn't it?
I've been wanting to do journalism for quite some time, but I didn't have the confidence that I would succeed because I am not the bold, pushy type. But then it kind of just happened. So, and nobody pushed me in the direction of investigations, but I was drawn to it. I started researching and I started just going deeper and deeper, and then I couldn't stop.
Wow. So you're not the bold type, but I think you're very bold to do this.
Yes.
Do you have any questions for Bianca, Leon? Or Okke, maybe?
I don't really have... I just want to say that I'm so happy to see that young people, and then in a country like Romania, which is really not easy to work, pick up this fight and start doing journalism as it should be done. And I really applaud you for doing that. It's really courageous.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
And maybe you can tell us what your plans are for the future.
I will keep working on public acquisitions. That's kind of my specialty now, let's call it. I'm also interested in investigating children in poverty and how the COVID-19 impacted their educational development. Mm-hmm. And I also started working on disinformation and fake news that are promoted by our politicians.
Aha. So a lot of important stuff you're going to do, and I really hope this will help you, the scholarship. And thank you so much, and keep up the good work, Bianca.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. Good luck.
Thanks.
Leon, back to you. Can you tell us a little bit about what the organization Free Press Unlimited is about?
Well, it's about actually the fundamental values, and the mission of Free Press Unlimited is actually perfectly exemplified by what Bianca was saying. It is that journalism is needed not only to protect democracy, but also to allow people to have access to those in power, to hold them to account, to investigate, because people deserve to know. That is the creed of the organization. So our mission is really rooted in the fundamental freedoms, like the freedom of expression, which is also part of European values. And we are adamant that we should protect that because, for example, the last year there have been more than 400 incidents across Europe that inhibit the work of journalists like Bianca. So it is there's a lot of interest.
There's a negative trend.
There's a negative trend in Europe, definitely, yes.
And maybe freedom of information also, right? So, to make your own decisions and as a individual. And what exactly does Free Press Unlimited do? Can you give us some examples? Well, Free Press Unlimited is a bunch of people who are really mission driven to assist those people like Bianca or Maria. And we do that in many corners of the world. And we do it by assisting in projects, developing new ideas, assisting quality journalism that serves public interest. Mm-hmm. So one of the things a couple of years ago, when we were looking at the problems that journalists are facing, one of the most important things that is happening all over the world is the increasing amount of threats that people are exposed to. So safety of journalists has become a real focus of our work. Mm-hmm. We do other things as well. We talked already about the lacking income generation for journalists. Yeah. We also care about gender equality in the media, which is still, across the board, also in the Netherlands, a huge problem and a very undebated problem that there's no representation of women. And so we focus on those, let's say, three corners, but the safety has become gradually a more and more important aspect of our work. And how exactly can you help journalists to do their work safe? What exactly can you do? Well, there's a number of things that are very important. First of all, there's an enormous wave of new digital threats. And journalists, I myself am not from a digital generation, so protecting yourself from being uncovered by, for example, criminals. When you're doing investigations like Bianca, you're exposing, maybe with your data, you're exposing yourself. So digital resilience, digital training, but also very important outright solidarity on a very basic level.
in the incident list that we see this year, for example, more than 400 people have been arrested across the globe without any accusation, and they disappear behind bars unless there is a lawyer who asks about them. So we provide that kind of legal assistance. We have helped people that need urgent hospitalization, because this year there have been a lot of incidents on people's protest in Hong Kong, in Belarus, in Venezuela, in Nicaragua. We see that police troops or security services are really, physically attacking people. So they need hospital care. It's that kind of very small but very important assistance that we provide. The number of cases that we helped in the last year has doubled.
Wow.
So it's an enormous, important aspect of our work, where we think, every person that we help to continue their work is a public service in itself.
Yes, and of course we mentioned it before. There's this debate on facts at the moment. There's a lot of fake news happening. There's a lot of distrust in the media. Even also in the Netherlands is growing. Budgets are being cut, so the circumstances are getting worse and worse. What can you, as an organization, do about this?
Well, it's a very complex problem, which makes it not easy to work on it. But on the other side, there are solutions. Let me give you an example. This year in the Netherlands, the media sector during the first corona wave lost 22% of their advertisement income. In most of the countries where we work, the loss of advertisement income is close to 50 or 60%.
What are the consequences of this?
The consequences are that almost half of the journalists in poor nations like Bangladesh, Nigeria, are being sacked. They've lost their job, which means they continue their job but without pay, because most of the journalists that we support are mission-driven. So there's an income gap that we need to fix. And I think the most important thing that we are not doing at the moment is taxing those that have stolen the advertisement revenue.
Who are they?
They are the big social media platforms, because COVID is just a tip of the iceberg of a trend that has already happened in the past years.
Yeah.
The advertisement revenue decline in the Netherlands has been 60% over the last 10 years.
So we're talking about the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the Twitters.
It is talking about the financial income model.
Yeah, and do you think they should be paying? Is this something we should organize nationally, or is this a global thing, or you're on a European level?
I think the European level is a very good level to do it, because a lot of people follow rules and regulations that the Europeans are setting. Because in spite of all the difficulties, the European Union is still respected as a norm-setting, a standard-setting body.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important that the media industry invests more in new revenue models, that journalists are trained better in doing the job of reaching the audiences. But it's difficult to tell journalists, you go out on the market and you find your own income, and otherwise, God bless you, bye-bye.
Yeah.
When the potential for getting money is stripped away. We need a new organization of information markets.
Well, do you agree, Okke?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the worst, or one of the bad things that has happened to journalism has been that it is being pulled into the gig economy. So there are too many journalists who constantly have to pitch stories, have to go from one paper or broadcaster to the other to see if there's something they are interested in. And it not just takes a lot of time of journalists, but it also narrows the offering. Because obviously when you're a private entrepreneur and you have to sell stories, you're going to think of stories that will actually sell. Yeah. So the more in-depth long read about some difficult situation in Latin America, you're just going to skip it, because nobody's going to be interested in it, because everything is about eyeballs, everything is about clicks. Which has a lot to do with what Leon just said about social media having taken so much of the business away. So I absolutely agree with that. And not
giving anything in return.
Yeah, they have not just taken the business of advertising, but they also, if you share something on Facebook, it's Facebook who profits from an article that has been written and in which they have not spent a penny.
Yeah.
So yeah, all the business has been taken away.
Yeah. We're going to talk about this, I think, a bit more with Maria later on. But maybe last question for you, Leon. What Free Press Unlimited is? You've been here for quite a few years already with the organization. What are you most proud of? You've accomplished.
Well, I think what makes me most proud, in all humility, and I'll explain why. We managed to shape a network of organizations that care about the protection of journalists and that save journalists.
International network.
International network.
Yeah.
And this year, for the first time, the number of journalists that are murdered around the world is declining. It's 21 this year. It was almost 50 last year. So we are making an impact. At the same time, every person that is lost is still one too many. So at night, I feel sometimes, and I'm speaking for all the people that are actively working in Free Press Unlimited, we feel sad because we haven't been able to solve some of the killings. But what makes me proud is that we saved so many, all of us together. And, all the religious books in the world say, if you save one human, you save humanity. So I'm saying that in humility because it's never enough, but that is what keeps us ticking. That is what keeps us motivated. That is what, it matters what we do. And if we do it together, we can really make a change. We can make a change and have more impact. And maybe one day no journalist will be murdered for finding the truth. Which is a nice moment to go to this campaign, Okke. The Free Press Unlimited started a new campaign. I think you already saw it at home.
Yes.
The masks we were wearing. The campaign is called Unmask the Truth. It's a call to solidarity, which Leon was also talking about, for journalists who are under pressure, who are facing violence, censorship, murder even. Editors, journalists, but also civilians were asked to wear this mask, to make a picture and say, unmask the truth and stop silencing journalists. I think on screen we are seeing a lot of pictures of people all over the world who participated. I think more than 1,000 masks have been sent all over the world. Okke, you are one of these journalists who also made a picture. I think I'm going to do it after the show also. But tell me, why did you do it? Well, because I think today with COVID and the presidential elections and the whole phenomenon of having Donald Trump in the White House, we've already discussed this. It's never been more important to have reliable journalism and people who investigate what's going on, like our winner of the first prize did in Romania, for example. But at the same time, it's never been more difficult, in my memory, to practice this profession. What is difficult? Because not just that we're underpaid, it's but you're constantly being threatened. Just to stay in the Netherlands, our national broadcaster had to remove the logos of their company from the satellite vans because they were constantly harassed and threatened when they went out to cover demonstrations or other kind of events. This happened a few weeks ago. And not just because of political views, but there are journalists in the Netherlands who are sitting at home scared because they have been threatened because of their race. It's more and more difficult to work if most of the journalists, and not just most journalists live below minimum wage. So everybody keeps saying that it's so important to have investigative journalism, that it is a vital profession, our government in the Netherlands even said. But when it comes to rewarding that and facilitating the kind of work we do, there is a profound discrepancy between those two things. So that's why I think this campaign is important. Well, very well said. I hope policymakers are watching. And maybe you can very briefly explain to us what happened to you personally, because you were working in Panama for a very long time. Yes. And in 2016, you were arrested and imprisoned. Can you tell us why? What happened?
Well, I was doing investigative work, and I published a series of articles on a blog that was not unlike the blog that Daphne Caruana was working on in Malta. It was kind of the similar tone of voice and running commentary of corruption and
corruption in Panama.
Corruption in Panama, yeah. And this was in the time of the Panama Papers, so they were very sensitive to any kind of revelations that were being made. And I had published a series of articles about a Canadian career criminal, a money launderer, who had bought support from the Panamanian government to be able to continue his business in Panama. And, of course, the career criminal and the government didn't like that. And so one day when I came back from a visit to the Netherlands, I arrived at Tocumen International Airport and I was detained and thrown in prison. And
what were the accusations?
The accusation was libel and slander. So there's a picture of me being in prison with two of my friends.
You made those friends. This raises questions. Did you make them? Did you make?
Yeah, they were in the same prison.
Okay.
I didn't know them before. One is a drug trafficker, and both are actually.
I'm sure you wrote stories about this.
Yeah.
And how were you eventually freed? Because you were imprisoned for 5 weeks.
Yeah, the idea was to lock me up for 20 months.
Yeah.
But that didn't work, and that was because we had a very good embassy in Panama. The
Dutch embassy.
Dutch embassy did a lot of work. And because NGOs came to the rescue, Leon already talked about that they have this global program to help journalists in need. And they were really literally on the money, because within a couple of days we had in Panama funds to pay a lawyer and make sure that everything was moving to get me out of there. And that resulted, together with protests, of which you see a picture here, that resulted in a presidential pardon. And so 2 days before Christmas, I was allowed to leave prison. And
but you were lucky in some way to be a Dutch citizen.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not as easy for a journalist from Panama.
No. And what you see is, and that to bring it back to this campaign, what you see is that journalists in Panama never go this far touching these kind of subjects.
Yeah.
Because I get thrown in jail, but they might just disappear, or or worse, or never get out of jail again.
Yeah,
and that's the difference. Yeah.
So solidarity, also work-wise, is very important to uncover these stories, I guess. I don't know if there's any questions from the audience. If not, people at home can also participate in this campaign. You can go to the website freepressunlimited.org and send us a picture and your quote about why you want to stand up for journalists. So please join the campaign. It's very important. I think it's time to go to the winner, who's already here with us in the studio, all the way from the Philippines, in the category Most Resilient Journalist. Maria Ressa, we already know she won, but you will receive a cash prize of €15,000, and we are very, very honored that you're here. But first of all, I want to give the floor to Leon, because you're going to tell us also who else was nominated, because there were a lot of people. I think.
Let me explain that the reason why I'm reading out the jury report is because of the corona rules in the Netherlands, because the jury, Tanja van Bergen, a distinguished investigative journalist from the Netherlands, and Awais Ali, he's director of the Pakistan Press Foundation, they're the jury. They couldn't be with us because of the corona rules. So I'm reading their report.
Yeah, you're not the jury yourself.
I'm not the jury. So the Free Press Award in the category Most Resilient Journalist is usually given to someone who has shown extreme bravery, is facing government problems, and has a track record of courage and perseverance in the face of that inhibitions that are imposed.
Yeah.
The nominated journalists all work in the face of that kind of government repression. And I think in this challenging year for public space, for journalism and democracy, it is an extremely important award. We received 63 nominations, which is a record number. And we're extremely humbled and proud of the fact of all the people that submitted their work. It was really a pleasure to look at them. The jury notes with concern the steep rise in problems and the increasing pressure on the journalist. Many reports highlight a new dimension in the challenges that journalists face. Worldwide, our colleagues experience enormous economic impact, as we talked about already before, on the face of the COVID pandemic. An impact that is overlooked by authorities in many countries. Worse, in some cases, we see that governments ban journalists from press conferences and in other ways impede journalist work. Fortunately, we see also governments that have declared journalism a vital profession, as Okke already indicated. And so we are proud and humbled to inform you about the 3 nominees. Number 1, Blas Zgaga. It's a difficult name. I hope I'm doing it right. The jury likes to name Blas Zgaga because he spent a lifetime and a career in journalism in Slovenia. And Slovenia is one of the countries where democracy is slipping, where media outlets are being taken over by politicians.
It's not one of the first countries you think of.
It's not one of the first countries you think of, but it shows a little bit that there is a slide in limiting press freedom across Europe, also in EU member states.
Yeah.
And the jury finds it important to highlight this new wave of authoritarianism. And Blas Zgaga, as an investigative journalist, has spent his lifetime career on reporting about how politicians manipulate the democratic institutions. So a very worthwhile nominee. Second, Raymond Joseph, someone that journalists like investigative journalists like Okke would call real traditional muckrakers. An investigative journalist that spends his entire day digging into financial records and digging up what is going wrong with public money. And Raymond did a story on abuse by politicians of lottery money in South Africa. A very important story that has helped transparency to become leading in the, first of all, in the policies of the lottery, but it also exposed some politicians who had to resign, and it ensured that public funds have been spent well. But then, last but not least, there's Maria Ressa from the Philippines, where over a period of many years now, she's being threatened to the extreme by her government. And so through all that, Maria has remained a person of hope and optimism for journalism. Maria is an example of how new authoritarianism tries to silence journalists. Dozens of lawsuits, arrest, intimidation, online threats and belittlement, financial coercive taxation. She has seen it all. But so far, not one of the many attempts to silence her has succeeded. She continues to enhance and innovate journalism in our country, which we find super inspiring, using digital technology to advance information services in poverty-stricken parts of the Philippines, whilst maintaining the highest standards of ethics in journalism and professionalism. So Mrs. Ressa created digital income models for investigative journalism that are leading in media development across the world. She's an example for all of us. She's also a mentor and a role model for hundreds of young Filipino journalists, especially female journalists and female professionals throughout the world. It's cynical that the numerous digital attacks against her and smear campaigns are enabled by the opaque algorithms of the social media platforms that we talked about. At the same time, the manufactured disinformation launched against her has made her one of the sources of inspiration and leadership in the fight against disinformation. So Maria continues to uplift many people with her Good Morning Manila tweets, and I can assure you, go to follow her. She always comes with an upbeat quote of the best statements of the world on the importance of independent journalism and the fight against moral corruption and abuse of power. Her optimism and fighting spirit are untainted by the powers that conspire against her. She will not be silenced because, in her own words, an attack on one is an attack on all. If the word resilience did not exist, it should be reinvented with her name in it. So it's my biggest honor and pleasure on behalf of the jury to reward and award the 2020 Free Press Award in the category Most Resilient Journalist to Maria Ressa.
Wow, Maria. Maria, this is the award. Let me show you. Yeah, congratulations. You're an example and inspiration for all of us worldwide. Thank you so much for being here. But before we talk, before we're going to talk, we made a short clip of your work and who you are. So I want to show the viewers to give them an impression.
Inyong mga reporter, they will be allowed to criticize us. But you go to jail for your crime.
I was getting 90 hate messages per hour.
Maria was released on bail. Maria and Rappler contend all charges are false.
Here with me are Maria Ressa.
And then there was me.
Yes, Maria, and then there was you. Thank you for being here. How do you feel about winning this award?
Oh, my Lord. First of all, thank you. Thank you so much to Free Press Unlimited. I guess, what Leon said just shows you. One, I'm old, as in old, right? Compared to Rapplers, the median age in Rappler is 23 years old.
Yeah.
I am far more than that. I could be more than their mother. But I think that one of the things these times show us is that track record doesn't matter. The longevity, however long you've been a journalist, it doesn't matter. In the age of social media, meaning is atomized and attacks are exponential. So a lie told 1 million times becomes a fact. And those are the things we've lived through. I think that what makes our experience just different and has made us not just a target of attack, but has given us, I'll call it our superpower, is that we've seen it up close, right? So
you mean you've seen it in the Philippines happening? You mean?
I am not just an investigative journalist, but I run the business of Rappler. We create the tech. Yeah. And I'm the target of attack.
Yeah.
So on all those fronts, we see the evolution of the attacks in the digital sphere, how this weaponization of social media bottom up is met top down with what Bianca said, which is the weaponization of the law, and how, it truly, by next year, I'll have been a journalist for 35 years. And this feels like an existential moment. And not just for journalism, because when journalists are under attack globally the way we are, democracy is under attack. Yeah. So if we don't take the right steps forward, all of the citizens in every democracy around the world will be affected.
Yeah, but for you personally, I'm curious because you were facing 6 years in prison. There's so many accusations. You're being trolled. You're being attacked. How are you personally?
So I'm facing almost 100 years in prison totally. The case that I got convicted on this year, June 15th, is a cyber libel case that it's for a story that was written 8 years ago that I didn't write, edit, or supervise. And the law we allegedly violated didn't even exist at that point. So, I feel a little bit like Joseph K. in Kafka's The Trial. I feel like here's another, I fell into, I'm Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
And
but at the same time, we're talking while you're in Manila, I think in your office, but on a personal note, how are you? Because this is mind-blowing, I think.
It's been 4 years. So, I think the way I've dealt with it and the way Rappler has dealt with it is by understanding the role we play in our society and our democracy, by preparing for the worst. So we've actually prepared for worst case scenarios and drilled worst case scenarios, but hope for the best. So we hope for the best. And then, you prepare yourselves for, you still try to push away the cynicism and hope and look for the best of human nature.
Yeah.
Right? So, sorry, I didn't really answer how am I.
No.
How am I? I am okay.
Yeah, you're a fighter. You're a fighter, and you're an inspiration. I think it's very clear why. Prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and keep on going. I think it's very clear why you're such an inspiration. Apart from all the good work you do, but were you never afraid?
I think everyone is afraid. A year ago, I truly had to embrace that I could go to jail, and it was Amal Clooney who pushed that right in my face. It was the launch of Trial Watch in New York City, and on my right side it was Mohammed Fahmy, the Canadian Egyptian who was jailed in Egypt. On my left side was Jason Rezaian, who had been jailed in Iran. He had just written his book, and I realized that I was the only one, and just like the Guardians, the Time Person of the Year in 2018, I was the only one who was still fighting and free at that point. In that panel, I was the only one who hadn't gone to jail. So I truly had to, I maybe spent 2 months trying to imagine what that would be like and being okay with it. It's the whole goal of all of this, and Bianca, the whole goal of it is to scare you.
Yeah, to intimidate you.
What if you don't get scared, right? And that's the end goal. I mean, Leon said it. Journalism is more important today than ever. Facts are under attack. Facts are debatable. We live in multiple realities in a situation like that. We have to keep doing what we're doing.
But so you're saying, Maria, that you make a very you make a choice not to be scared. Is that what you're saying? The only way to do this job is to make the decision not to be scared.
I'm going to take something I heard from a Norwegian friend, which is, I was in Norway and it was raining the entire time. It was so cold. And he said, Maria, embrace the cold. Embrace it. Embrace the rain. Well, embrace your fear. That's really what I had to do, because when you embrace your fear, when you hold it, then you get over it and you rob it of its sting, and you keep doing your job.
Okay. Keep doing your job.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. You're very brave. You're very brave. And it's very big questions, but maybe you have a short answer. But what is at this moment? At the background is the U.S. elections. What is your main concern regarding journalism nowadays?
It's exactly what we're seeing happen in U.S. elections, right? If we're thinking about this moment as an existential moment for democracy, in many ways, a lot of the problems that journalists face came from Silicon Valley. Social media platforms. Facebook is now the world's largest distributor of news, right? But yet, when the platforms that distribute the facts are biased against the facts, when lies laced with anger and hate spread faster and further on these distribution platforms, when influence operations are allowed to go unchecked, when they essentially are behavior modification systems, you are seeing what's happened in the United States. It's essentially Silicon Valley's ills have now come home to roost. And I truly hope that the civic engagement that was really spurred by the realization that hate speech, disinformation, and conspiracy theories have eroded the fabric of American democracy, have eroded the fabric of every democracy around the world, that these things now require citizens to go beyond just voting, right? You have to ask yourself the same question I asked myself 4 years ago, which is, what are you willing to sacrifice for the truth? Well, this is it in America. And you can see the outpouring, but again, you can also see the deep division that these social media platforms that are designed into these platforms that impact and change human behavior.
But what is the solution? We heard Leon say they should pay money for journalism. For maybe Facebook, we should be paying money worldwide for journalism. Or in the Netherlands, they're talking about, or I think worldwide, cutting up the power of Facebook, for example. What is the solution according to you?
So to me, there are three pillars of Rappler, and I look at the solution through these three ways, and then I'll go directly to what you want. What do we do with the tech, right? But the first is technology, and there are many different ways, but one of the things that we've tried to do, so I'm involved in the Real Facebook Oversight Board, which is a group of experts who have come together a month before the U.S. elections, led by Carol Cadwalader, who was behind the Cambridge Analytica story, and also Shoshana Zuboff, professor emeritus at Harvard. She wrote The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. As Leon said, it's the business model, right? Everything comes down to the business model and the way that our behavioral data is being used to manipulate us. So that is one emergency intervention. But then the other part is Leon and I are part of the Forum on Information Democracy. I co-chair the Infodemics Working Group with Marit Kishake, who is in Stanford right now. But we're looking for structural solutions for this technology, right? How do we fix it? And there are 4 papers that are coming out in November. The second leg is journalism. You have to help journalism survive this. And so one of the ways, aside from some of the things that Leon has said, is I've joined the advisory group of the International Fund for Public Interest Media. It's an initiative to try to raise $1 billion a year, which is very small when you think about the fact that the Q3 revenue of the Q3 results of Facebook is $21 billion. Well, the International Fund for Public Interest Media wants to raise $1 billion a year, right? And aside from helping the business model, helping journalists, because it's both organizationally and personally, you have to protect individual journalists. And then finally, the last part, journalists will keep giving you the facts. We'll have the courage to stand up to power. We'll have the standards and ethics that requires, right? But where are the NGOs, the civil society groups? They need to mobilize. They need the facts to mobilize because, again, this is an existential moment. We cannot do this alone. And it must be. We have to think about it like the time post-World War II, when the entire world came together and said, we must prevent humanity from unleashing the worst on humanity.
Wow.
Sorry.
I'm still thinking, what am I going to do? I would vote for Maria if there would be a possibility. Maria, I'm receiving a lot of questions from people watching all over the world. There's a question from Boris. Are there more journalists like you that face similar threats in your country?
Yes. Yes. Although no one has as many cases as I do right now, right? But and part of that is because I don't shut up. I speak, and we see the problems. And in 2016, I felt like we were writing stories against impunity of our president's drug war, Rodrigo Duterte, and Mark Zuckerberg, right? But look, while we've been in lockdown on May 5, the largest broadcaster in the Philippines, ABS-CBN, a news group I used to head. This network was shut down. And this as well, there will be legalistic acrobatics that the government will justify shutting it down. But in the end, this is a freedom of speech issue. So we keep fighting. We have no choice.
We have no choice, exactly. Because what's the alternative? We need to have hope. And what can you say about other journalists like Tiglayo attacking you?
I get an average of 90 hate messages per hour. You know,
90 hate messages per hour.
90.
Wow.
I know that, Julie Passetti is writing. And, in 2016, when I was trying to figure out, what do I do with this? This is an entirely new weapon unleashed against journalists. And this truly took off in 2015, 2016. Bianca talked about how she had a case for fake news. Well, what is fake news? Fake news is what whoever in power doesn't like or doesn't want to answer. So in the past, journalists truly had the power to hold power to account. Today, we are marginalized. We've lost our gatekeeping power to tech, and yet we're foolishly, like Don Quixote, still going out like Bianca did, right? And you have to, because I would think globally, the journalists have done their jobs. We're holding power to account. But now government, civil society, you've got to come in. We've got to come up with the legislation to actually make sure technology isn't insidiously manipulating us, because there are huge issues in terms of free will. The research has always shown that the way we vote is more emotional than it is logical or rational. And in this age of social media, when we are being manipulated by our own data, this becomes an issue of free will. So tech, journalism, allow it to survive, and then mobilize civil society. America did it a little too late. Is it going to be enough for their vote? Look at all of us watching.
Yeah, we don't know yet. I'm receiving a lot of questions, and I'll read out a few. Someone is asking, what else can we do to help? Another one is, does Maria and Rappler receive support from the people, or do they oppose her? And does Maria still have time to do journalism as responding to all those threats seem like a day job? Well, pick one.
Which one? I guess, so the first is that our community is, they're lifesavers. Our legal fees ballooned from almost $0 to $40,000 a month, right? And how did we pay that? With the help of our community here and around the world. We started a crowdfunding campaign and we started a membership campaign, right? So all of a sudden, people came in. Journalists all around the world helped us shine the light. I don't know how we could have survived 4 years of these intense attacks. I mean, look, I lived through exactly how social media is used to seed the attacks to destroy your reputation. How your president can come down and repeat those same attacks. How you spend 4 out of 5 days a week in courthouses, because in 2018, the weaponization of the law, we had 11 cases filed against me and Rappler. In 2019, I had 8 arrest warrants. I was arrested twice in a 5-week period, and then...
And you say all this smiling. I can't believe you say all this smiling. There's this inner strength within you to keep on going and fighting, and it's really amazing.
You know what? I think about it as, I think any journalist in my position would do the same thing, which is you analyze what is going on, understand it, and then you put one foot in front of the other, because what we do at this time matters. Right? Exactly. You don't want to duck. You can't duck.
No, we can't duck. And maybe last question from me, because we have to stop almost, or maybe we have some extra minutes. No, they're all saying no. We have to. Last question, because you've said before that what happened in the Philippines is an example for the rest of the world, is an example for the US, and then you talk about Facebook and the influence of Facebook and social media and tech. What can we even in Europe now? We just heard it's all declining. Democracies are everything is at stake. The press, journalism, democracies. What can we learn from the situation in the Philippines?
I said this in 2016, that our dystopian present is going to be your dystopian future. And, Chris Wiley, the Cambridge Analytica whistleblower, actually called the Philippines the Petri dish because SCL, the parent company, and Cambridge Analytica tested their tactics of mass manipulation here. And when it worked, they ported it over to the West. America was the target, but we were the guinea pigs.
Yeah.
So what is happening? Technology upended our world. This is part of the reason I work with the Infodemics Working Group. It is part of the reason I'm as a journalist trying to draw the line between journalism and activism. And today is difficult, right? And I feel like when the government arrested and detained me, all of a sudden they unshackled me because I am fighting for my rights. I think the question that we need to really look at is the way. Let me summarize it this way. I became a journalist because I knew information is power.
Mm-hmm.
There is no better time than today to show you that. When technology upended it, when journalists lost our gatekeeping powers to tech, tech abdicated responsibility for protecting the public sphere. And now we are all paying the price. So what needs to happen? Regulations need to kick in. Enlightened self-interest on the part of the tech platforms of these Silicon Valley companies. Shoshana Zuboff has mentioned that, this behavioral markets of our data should be outlawed, like the slave market. I mean, that's radical in a sense, but if that is the root of all evil, these are things we need to consider.
Yeah.
And then finally, truly, it needs to be personal to everybody in a democracy. Every generation gets the democracy it deserves.
Yeah. I know.
What are we going to do? This is it.
Yeah. Okay. You've inspired us. Thank you so much, Maria, Ressa, and please keep up the good work. And I'm very honored, and I hope you can use this prize and this money. I think so. Thank you so much. I think we're at the end of this webinar. Leon, some last words for you. What made the most impressions? Any thoughts for the future?
Well, it would be almost inappropriate to speak after this. But I think I want to highlight one thing that Maria mentioned. It's about community.
Yeah.
And it's also what Free Press Unlimited believes deeply in. And the people at Free Press Unlimited, Maria is an example working in Manila. But there are people out there in Mindanao, on the Filipino islands, that strongly depend on support from associations, journalist associations, press freedom groups, etc. We are in so much need to protect civil society and organize and help organize civil society across the world, because the local organizations, the local press freedom organizations know best how to support their case. And Maria is a high-profile case, and she has her own way of making it to the international stage, and I'm very happy about it. And it's because, of course, of her, as a result of her eloquence and her fighting spirit. But there's so many people who depend on the solidarity of civil society to stand up for journalists so that they can exercise their job to provide us with the right to information.
And so the last, great. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Leon. Thank you, Okke. Thank you, Maria, and everybody who's watching. And we hope to see you all again live, hopefully when the pandemic is over next year. Thank you.